I swear I would not make it through a day here in Washington without Nick Caroli. Producer, tech, babysitter. Thanks so much for joining me today. We're back here in Washington after game one last night. And, you know, a couple of takeaways real quick from yesterday. And coming up on the program, we're going to talk a lot about the two games last night. We'll talk plenty about the two games on the horizon tonight. The Canes squeezed the Capitals. Oilers with another comeback. That's 5. That's a record. We'll talk about the depth of the Edmonton Oilers coming up here in a couple of moments. But I'll tell you what, Zach, before we really get the show rolling here, like there was a lot of action on the ice last night, a lot of action off the ice, which we're going to get into here. The Buffalo Sabres add Eric Staal to the management group. Utah has a name now, the Mammoth, go Tusk. And a couple of other things we'll talk about as well as the coaching carousel continues to maneuver its way to a really interesting place right now. Some interesting names are starting to pop up. We'll get to that in a couple of moments. But so there's all this going on last night. So I'm in Popcorn Row watching the game last night. I find watching Carolina to be fascinating, and I'll tell you why in a second. But you know what everybody was talking about? Up and down Popcorn Row last night. What do you think everybody was fixated on during the intermissions of the Washington Capitals Carolina Hurricanes game? Spot quiz. Maybe everyone in the chat can weigh in too. No, that's just in your own little Toronto Maple Leaf world, Zach. Like
everybody cared about
hockey.
that.
There is hockey outside of Toronto, and I say that as someone from Toronto. They were all fascinated by and talking about Chris Pronger on ESPN. On the panel with Mark Messier and PK Subban. First of all, he's great. Like, he's built for this type of work. Chris is fantastic. We just had him on the program last week. Anyone who's seen Chris Pronger interviewed, by the way, he's become a must-follow on hockey Twitter. His strings of comments are fantastic and pretty enlightened. And actually, yesterday he was talking about his role with the Department of Player Safety and what goes into evaluating suspensions. But if you ever wanted to get some perspective just on how big Chris Pronger is, just on like how large a man Chris Pronger is, like, first of all, PK Subban's a big dude, right? Like Subban's large and Subban's thick. He looked tiny standing next to Chris Pronger. And anyone that watched Pronger play, you know, of course, you know that he's a giant. But then even just watching him in a suit, standing next to Mark Messier and standing next to PK Subban. You know, I always marvel at the size of a lot of hockey players. And I always love going back. And I'm going to give you an example here that's a really sort of, for those that know this era, it's a pretty stark comparison. So there was a guy in the NHL in the 1970s by the name of Dave the Hammer Schultz. I will get to like hockey that's going on here in a second. Just indulge the old man for a second. The guy by the name of Dave the Hammer Schultz, who set the penalty minute record for the NHL with 472. That's a record that I'm pretty confident in saying will never be broken. But nonetheless, he was considered the king of the jungle. He was a leader of the Broad Street Bullies. Ultimately, met his demise at the fists of Larry Robinson of the Montreal Canadiens. But that's a story for another day. And you know who he was the exact same size of? Matt Stajan. Matt Stajan and Dave Schultz had the exact identical weight, had the identical height as well. Now, they played very different games, but as we're sort of comparing two generations and how players continue to grow, I always like pointing out that Dave the Hammer Schultz and Matt Stajan were almost identical in stature. Now, coming up on the program today, we have a lot to get to. Yeah, great comment, Marek. Yeah, wild. Coming up on the program today, Daily Outlines presented by and powered by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more with North America's #1 sports book. Those are our friends and presenters at FanDuel. And coming up on the program today, we've got a couple of really special guests. Very much looking forward to talking to Brian MacLellan. Do you know where Brian MacLellan is from, Zach, by the way?
No.
Guelph, Ontario. You know how I know that? I'm a fan of Brian MacLellan. Watched him play. Was a really good hockey player. Undrafted, went from Bowling Green to the LA Kings, and I went to University at Guelph. George McPhee, also from Guelph as well. Matthew Barnaby, it's not from Guelph. He'll be joining the program today. We'll talk about Carolina, Washington. We'll talk about the Oilers' comeback, and we'll talk about the games tonight. So I was having a very pretentious exchange with someone today. You'll appreciate this one. We were talking about what it must be like to have to play against the Carolina Hurricanes. It's not as if the Carolina Hurricanes just play man-to-man in their own zone. Like, it's man-to-man all over the ice. And this is from someone that I have a ton of respect for, like someone that really understands the game. And the point that we were trying to make is, if you're gonna be successful against Carolina, the way that they play, you have to have incredible patience. And the good thing for the Washington Capitals here in this series, playing against Carolina, when you play man-to-man all over the ice, there's a lot of ice that's opened. And we saw this with Protas's goal last night, right? Like, there's a lot of ice behind players. So there is actually a lot of the irony of it. It's suffocating to play against the Carolina Hurricanes, but there's a lot of open ice available if you can get out of the man-to-man. And again, we saw that on the Protas goal. And he brought up the art of war, this person I was talking to, Lao Tzu, and said what the Capitals need to do is defend where they want to defend. Don't defend where your opponent wants you to defend. You defend where you want to defend. So this big, huge conversation about how you beat the Carolina Hurricanes at their game. And he brought up the art of war and said, like, look, you got to get them out of the middle of the ice. You have to get them chasing to the boards. That's where you want the battle to be. You don't want the battle to be where they are. And we saw this last night. The Carolina Hurricanes, volume shooting. Like, you can make the point that even though the rink may have seemed tilted, if you just looked at the shots on goal and the attempted shots as well, like, it's a real tilt here for the Carolina Hurricanes. A lot of it is just volume. And when you watch Carolina from Popcorn Row, you really get an interesting sense of how Rod Brind'Amour is playing chess here with his guys. And the other point, which is interesting too, is when you're playing man-to-man the way that the Carolina Hurricanes do, it's not so much that the structure is when they don't have the puck. They actually have more structure when they do have the puck, because playing defensively the way Carolina does, it's all about communication. That's all it is. You have your man, and if you can't communicate, you can't play on the Carolina Hurricanes. Zach, essentially the point that I'm trying to make here, and I don't know if this is true or not, like, do you have to be an elite thinker of a hockey player to play on the Carolina Hurricanes? Like, this is the thing that I always wonder about with, like, Eric Tulsky or Don Waddell before him. Like, when you're either drafting or whether you're making trades to put people on this Carolina Hurricanes team, how much do you factor in you need to be able to think really quickly on the ice? Or do all NHLers just have that baseline of hockey IQ? I don't know the answer to that. Do you?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, actually, just having, because I was going to say, well, I think a lot of them are just smart enough, but I do feel like there is a very specific style of player, type of player that would have to fit into that or be able to adapt to that, because you have to be so sharp and so responsive in those situations to play that way. Like you mentioned, like where you could have breakdowns. Yeah. You have to have other people who are going to be able to read and respond. The one thing I always thought about was like in-field lacrosse, which I played a lot. It's very different than box lacrosse. The defensive system is very different, and there are slides all over the field. So this guy loses his guy, your turn to rotate in, and then someone has to cover you. You have to be alert to play that kind of a defense, and it kind of reminds me of where you get to with this Carolina team. So I think it is a baseline. But in all honesty, I do think that there is an element of, like, Hurricanes players might just be smarter than some other players, not just because of the system. Like, they might just need a certain level of intelligence, or maybe the wrong word, but like that responsiveness that you get out of these guys that maybe some other players don't have, and you need a very specific player to do so.
The good thing from Washington's point of view, and by the way, 93 shot attempts last night for the Carolina Hurricanes. Again, volume. I remember talking to one Hurricanes player a number of years ago. I said, like, what's your strategy? And he says, well, we take our first period and we warm up our Corsi. Warming up our Corsi is just shot to keep our manager happy. But the good thing about the positive, if you're a Washington Capitals fan, through this is that if you're going to beat the Carolina Hurricanes at this game, A, you have to be patient, and B, you have to have a lot of players that can score suddenly. It can't just be a team that's dominated by, well, these two guys score and that's it. And if all of a sudden their offense is pop gun, we're not going to win. The good thing, if you're a Caps fan, you got to know is your team can score. And there's a lot of players on this team. It's not just Ovechkin that can find the back of the net. Essentially what I'm saying is, because I was walking out and there's a lot of Caps fans coming out of Capital One that kind of had the hangdog face and, oh man, like they just suffocated us. We couldn't skate. They're skating they're in our hip pocket. It's it's a tough game to watch. We're moving in quicksand. Why do our Washington Capitals look so slow? The good thing about it is there is open ice available and the Caps have guys that can score. That's why I'm still very much interested in this one, and I don't look at it and say, well, the Caps lost serve and that's it. The Caps are out of this one. I don't think that for 1 second. Not a chance.
Yeah, it's interesting watching that Canes team, and I kind of notice the same things as you, where it's like, okay, those opportunities to break, they're going to come, but you have to find ways to get them. But until that happens, you can't get frustrated. Like, it's literally like being in quicksand where, if you act faster and then you sink quicker, if you start to get frustrated with that system, you're going to get snuffed out faster, because this Canes team is just going to watch you start to do that, watch you start to overreact, and just take advantage of it, because they now have an ability better than they ever have and how they've ever been constructed to actually capitalize on those opportunities offensively themselves and make use of those moments and those offensive chances. So it's kind of like, I expect the Caps to respond. I think Carberry is an unbelievable coach. I think they're going to respond, but I think the messaging in there just has to be like, do not get frustrated by this, because you will sink so quickly if you do, and you start to play out of our system and our game plan, because there's going to be, this is one, Jeff, that's going to be fun. We're going to watch literal chess being played on the ice, where Brendan Moore is going to say, like, we're going to wrap you up and suffocate you, and Carberry, on the other hand, is going to go, okay, we're going to exploit here, and we'll see how you respond to that. And then it's like, okay, ball is back in your court, Rod. And then we're just going to watch this for however long it goes on.
I love it. And listen, you're right about the bench. I mean, there's elite coaches back there, not just Spencer Carberry, but Mitch Love, who's getting a lot of attention around the NHL, I can assure you, and Kirk Muller, who always has. It's a smart bench. The other thing, one final note on this one, Brian MacLellan's going to be stopping by here in a couple of moments. One other point that I do want to make about Carolina, they tire you out when they have the puck. Like, by the time when the puck turns over, like Washington we've just chased these guys for 30 seconds and now we got the puck, but we're so, the feeling, right, Zach? You finally get the puck back and you're exhausted. Like, they tire you out when they have, it's a fast, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I find them fascinating. But again, open ice is available. You can see it. It's all over the place. It's just that Carolina skates right beside you. Another big comeback by the Edmonton Oilers last night. That was impressive. And perhaps most impressive is it wasn't just Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. It's Connor Brown and it's Zach Hyman finding the back of the net as well. By the way, they're doing all this without Matthias Ekholm. And the one thing as well, like that passing play with McDavid, Draisaitl, and Corey Perry. First of all, that's a really cool line offensively. Corey Perry was never Pavel Bure. Corey Perry was never a burner. No one's ever going to confuse him for Fedorov. So if you are Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, he's not coming back there with you. Like, when the puck turns over, it's you guys that have to go, because it ain't going to be Corey Perry. I assure you. Now, Corey Perry is fantastic in front of the net. He's fantastic falling on goaltenders, as we found. He's really good, sticking the puck past goalies as well. But if you're back checking, don't expect Corey Perry to do anything other than perhaps wave at the bench. Hyman, great, but you know who really stands out in a game like that, and I'm really happy for this guy because of everything that he's gone through. Most notably his surgery. John Klingberg. Really good again. By the end of that Kings series, John Klingberg, we started to see that the old Dallas Klingberg, and Klingberg was excellent. He really was. He was fantastic for the Oilers. More on that as we talk to Matt Barnaby a little bit later on. In the meantime, he is the president of hockey operations for the Washington Capitals. He is one of the architects of this excellent hockey team. He's Brian MacLellan, and he joins me on the sheet. Brian, first of all, thanks so much for doing this. How are you today? I know that things didn't go swimmingly last night. I was talking about how difficult it is to play against Carolina, but last time I checked, the sun came up this morning.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, Jeff, we're probably in a little bit of a mood here today, I would call it. That was a tough night for us last night. I think, Carolina, I don't think there was any surprises on our part, the game they brought. And, probably a lot of disappointment on our side on how we played. And I would expect a response next game from us.
The one thing, and listen, you know this a lot better than I do. The one thing that I took away from that one, from the Washington point of view, when you're playing a game and the other team is playing man on man, like there's a lot of open ice that's available, right? And the thing that I was saying, like if I'm a Caps fan, I'm like, look, like the way you beat the Carolina Hurricanes, you gotta, try to draw them into an area where you want to be, but also you need to be really patient. And I know at playoff time, Brian, you played and you won Stanley Cup with the Calgary Flames. Like it's hard to be patient out there, especially at home. Like that was your quintessential Carolina Hurricanes game. But there's open ice that's available, and the Washington Capitals have players that can find the back of the net quickly. Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I think, last night I thought, it was a constant pressure from them. And then, I think Spencer talked about it all week about, we're going to go through periods where they're going to dominate play and we're going to have to get through it. And then we wait for our opportunities. Like you said, you be patient and you're going to get some scoring opportunities. And they're usually grade A's that you get
Yes.
when you survive what they do, because they're constant pressure. And if you can beat the pressure, you're going to get a chance. And I think last night we didn't do it enough. We didn't execute in our own end. They kept us in our own end, and the zone time was significantly favorable for them. And by the time we get the puck out, or we're tired. We don't have enough energy to do a forecheck. We're changing. We're constantly not reaching our game or establishing our game or our identity in that game last night. So it's been a frustrating game last night and a frustrating morning this morning.
What I wanted to, and that was last night. We'll bracket that conversation for a couple of moments here. What I was hoping to do with you, Brian, here is talk about the construction of this team. Chris Patrick is the general manager of this team, and one of the things that I've been saying this year, half tongue in cheek, but more than half serious too, is that you could give the general manager of the year award to someone who technically isn't the general manager right now. He's a president of hockey operations. Now, I'm not saying that Chris Patrick wasn't involved in those decisions. I'm sure he was, working side by side with you. But when you went about not redoing, but complementing the team that you already had, and whether it was the Pierre-Luc Dubois deal, whether it's Andrew Mangiapane, I want to talk about Dylan Strome, and I want to talk about Jacob Chychrun. Like, first of all, did you get everything done last summer that you wanted to?
Yes. I think going into the offseason, I think, our mandate the last couple of years has been to get younger. So we were looking for players that weren't real young, but, in their mid-20s that we could use, and we could, hopefully stay competitive or get better and incorporate some of our older guys in the lineup. So we went through our whole process of identifying guys that we thought fit that mold, and consequently we got a couple. I think and then at the same time we reacted in free agency to, like, say, we're trading Kemper for Dubois. We make that decision. Yep. We do that. We know we need a goalie. We're looking for a number one goalie. Then we make the trade with Vegas for LT. So that filled that hole. And the same with the Jensen Chychrun trade. It was important for us to get Matt Roy in free agency to cover the Jensen role within our team. So, And then the same with Malmstein. We traded Beck Malmstein, fourth line left winger, for a second round pick, which we got Hudson. And then free agency, we identified Duhaime, and we ended up signing Duhaime. So we filled holes that we were creating by trading guys, and then we felt we added, big pieces that made our team deeper and better for the year.
What was after everything was done? And okay, this is the squad. How good did you think this team was going to be? Like where were you at with this team? I don't know that you just looked at this and said, yeah, we're winning the conference, but I don't know, maybe you did. How good did you think this team was?
I think we felt good about it internally. I don't know that people outside of our organization thought that way. In reality, we had a number one goalie, two top four D, top six center. We worked our bottom six. So we did a lot of work and we added a lot of pieces that we felt was, we're going to be a more competitive team. I don't know that I felt we were going to be top of the league or second in the league in wins and points and all that, but I thought we'd be a lot more competitive than we were last year.
I was talking with Joe Beninati on the program yesterday, Brian, and one of the things that we were talking about is normally when teams rebuild or they transition from one era of a team to another era, there's a valley. And for a number of reasons, there hasn't been a valley here for the Washington Capitals. And look, I'm watching, Ryan Leonard out there last night, and we're thinking about, okay, so what's on the horizon for Ryan Leonard? You mentioned Hudson a couple of seconds ago, and there's another blue chipper for the Washington Capitals. Of course, it's a tip of the hat to the scouts, and that's a role that you used to fill. But how did you? I don't know. Like, what's the secret? What's the magic wand for redoing a team, turning over a team, and not going through a valley?
I think you got to make a whole bunch of good decisions. I think when we started, our team was aging out. It was a maturing team. We started getting into injury problems. We're becoming less competitive. Consciously we've said, we want, Ovi's got to finish his career here. He wants a competitive team. So we're going to try and thread a needle of getting younger, getting faster, rebuilding the team, and at the same time, drafting some young players and remaining competitive. So at the time we said, it's going to be difficult, but we're going to try and thread the needle and do it the right way. And so far it seemed to have worked out the way we planned.
Hudson and Leonard specifically, I think, have a lot of Caps fans excited and rightfully so. Hudson it's always great when you get first round value in the second round. Was that one of those situations where when it came to your time to pick, you couldn't say his name fast enough at the table?
No, I think we made the trade with Buffalo, and we had the second round pick, and he was the guy we wanted to get. And I think Buffalo had two picks right there, and we were trying to get Buffalo. We were worried Buffalo's going to pick Hudson, and then we were, can we have the other pick? Is there anything we can do to get in front of you? Have your first, second round pick. So it was, we were worried we weren't going to get him, but that was the theory behind getting that second. That's the guy we targeted, and we ended up getting him.
Thought on what you've seen, down the stretch of the regular season and early here in the playoffs from Ryan Leonard.
Yeah, I think he's finding his way. Obviously he has a lot of he's a good skater. He's got good strength. He's got a good shot. I think the transition from college hockey to NHL hockey, especially playoff hockey, he's learning. You can see him getting better each game, learning what he can do and what he can't do out there. Physically and with the puck. But he does show flashes of speed, of, a good rush player, a good shot. I think it's just a matter of time before he starts producing at this level.
So we saw Alexi Protas find the back of the net last night. He had one of the most remarkable, I don't want to call it a turnaround, but like season to season as far as increased production goes. He went from a handful of goals to a 30 plus goal scorer in the NHL. And And because the Washington Capitals seem to need even more prospects, I watch a lot of OHL hockey, and I watch a lot of Windsor Spitfires. So I watch his brother a ton, Ilya, who's A, huge, and 2, really skilled. You don't score 50 goals by mistake in the Ontario Hockey League. Do you have a thought on yet another Caps prospect on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, we're excited about him. And I think we were excited about him when we were drafting him too. Same kind of MO as his brother. I mean, we got people in our organization that think he might be a little bit better than his brother in the end, but we tracked him for a long time because we had his brother, we knew his brother, we knew the character of his brother, and he's in the same mold. Good size, good person, good character, works at his game. Had a great year this year. So, I mean, we're excited to get our hands on him.
I was talking to a coach a few weeks ago, and I said, like, from your point of view, from your perspective, how often does the game change? Like, how often all of a sudden, okay, now there's a different way to play it based on the skill set of the new players that are coming into the NHL. And he said, be honest with you, the game right now, because for the longest time in the NHL, the game stayed the way that it was. And he said, now the game changes and I need to adapt about every 5 years. Does that resonate with you from what you've seen and experienced on the ice? That the game of hockey changes every 5 years.
Yeah, I don't know the time frame of it, but you got it constantly being adapted. I mean, I think the coaches adapt, the speed of the game, the coaching of the game, specialty teams especially, like power plays, I think have evolved tremendously to movement, diving down, the way they select shots. 5-on-5 play is probably, similar, but, the defensive schemes change a little bit, what version of man-on-man teams are using. But once I think, these guys are coming in, they're more ready to play in the NHL, the young guys, they're more skilled. A lot of focus is on creating offense. And I think it's, somebody comes up with something and someone's trying to copy what you're doing or other teams are doing, or teams are asking, what are those guys doing that we should be doing? I mean, these coaches now are constantly trying to evolve and come up with stuff that makes your team better.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I'm always curious about, and this is, at least for me, I think one of the best compliments you can pay a player is that guy could play in any era. He could play in a solo rush league like the NHL was in the 50s and 60s. Can play in a high flying puck movement era like the 80s. Could play in the 1970s where half the league probably should have been in prison. There's a lot of distinct eras in the NHL. When you look, and listen, Ovechkin is one of these guys who could play in any era. When you look at the Washington Capitals, your team that you put together here with Chris, how many guys do you look at and you say, you know what? This guy could play in any era. That guy could play in any era.
Yeah.
Who are those guys for you? You know what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, no, I do. I think Wilson could play in any era.
Yep.
He's just, I mean, he would have been really good in the, 80s, 90s. It's just the size and the skating, that
skating is awesome.
Yeah. And that's what separates him, being that big and to be able to skate like that. I think Protas could play. I mean, I think in the earlier years, size and skill, you had to be able to get through stuff, strength-wise, the hooking, the holding, the interference, a lot of more of that. So you needed bigger players that have enough skill. So like Wilson, Protas, obviously Ovi, they would excel in that era too, or the previous eras.
It's interesting. I go back every summer and I go and I watch old hockey games from different eras. It just sort of helps me contextualize where the game's at now. And, I go to the era where you were playing with the Flames and and won a Stanley Cup. And anytime anyone's skating through the neutral zone, it's, a stick is on the hip or they're getting held. And we're just so used to guys going down and referees' arm going up. And back then, Brian, like you had a stick on your hip, you bent your knees and you tried to skate through it. I guess maybe that's one of the things I was getting at with like, who are the guy, and Wilson's a great example, those guys on your team that would not just like, oh, I got a stick on my hip, this is automatic power play, would bend their knees instead of trying to draw a penalty.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody back then, Jeff. So it's like we used to practice holding up guys. So
Yeah.
you do a forecheck drill, and if you let your guy go, you mean you're failing at your job. But you'd have a stick in his, around his hip area, and you'd be slowing him up so he can go full speed and do the forecheck. And in a game, and if you let a guy go, and he did get a big hit on your defenseman, I mean, they're looking at you like, do your job. You got to hold him up. You can't let him hit me like that. Whereas
Yeah.
now the forecheck game now is wide open. These guys can come in and I mean you got guys like like Wilson and Anderson in the last series that full speed, full contact on D-man, and they got to handle that pressure without anybody holding them up. So it's a different deal for D-men especially.
I got a couple of questions, but one more about that era that we're talking about. Okay, because the one thing that's really pronounced when you compare eras, back pressure. Now, like guys are on you like right away.
Right.
And
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. As a winger in the NHL in the '80s, true or false? Your job on the back check was to make sure the trailing defenseman didn't get in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so you were always excited when you had one of those defensive defensemen that never joined the rush. You'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
this is I can take my time getting back. No, but I think Jeff too, like that system, that thought, centerman created offense from that gap in the with the no back
Yeah.
pressure. So like your Gretzky's, your Howard Chucks, these guys would, once they got over the blue line, there's a lot more curling up and hitting trailing players, hitting wingers,
Yeah.
which doesn't happen now because your rush players so much pressure coming from behind that you have to go full speed on the rush.
Okay, last one for you. There was a famous one in the WHA which featured Nick Fotiu and Jack Carlson. But when was the last time Brian MacLellan saw a fight in a player's bench?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen one actually. You see him around the bench, but I think the
Yep.
circumstances with Tom there where, it was the end of the period, the coach opened the door and those guys just happened to be there and they fell in. So it was pretty unique circumstance.
Finish on this one. Randy Workman in the chat says, Jeff, tell Brian Calgary still loves him. You have a thought on the Calgary Flames where you won your Stanley Cup as a player?
Yeah, I think it was, for me, it was a great experience to be able to go and play there. I mean, they had such a good team, or we had such a good team, and the guys were a great group of guys. Just really good memories because you're winning all the time and you're top of the league, and
Yeah.
it was a really solid organization. Cliff Fletcher was great. So it was a lot of good memories from being there, and a lot of it has to do with winning too.
You had a lot of success. Brian, good luck in game 2. I know it might be a frustrating one for your Caps today, but as I mentioned, the sun came up this morning. Game 2 is tomorrow. Thanks so much for doing this, and best of luck the rest of the way.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
There he is. Brian MacLellan is the president of hockey operations. I almost said general manager. That's Chris Patrick. He's the president of hockey operations. So he's the same GM, Brian MacLellan, for the Washington Capitals. Game 2 is tomorrow. So a couple of things from that one. Oh, by the way, one thing we should point out too, I don't know the last time, if at all, we've seen players fighting in the bench, but there it was in the last round, Montreal, Washington with Anderson and Tom Wilson. But Zach, let me pull you on this one. I'll ask Barney when he joins us in a couple of moments as well. You ever seen someone take someone else's mouth guard out of their mouth?
No, I have not. I was watching that actually thinking about that. And
that was
like
for me.
One of the things I was thinking is, does he put it back in his mouth now? Because like it was in the glove and someone else is like,
no. So if you watch on the bench, Aho had it and he threw it behind the trainer. There was no way that was going back in his mouth. Yeah.
I missed that part. I didn't see that. That's funny. But yeah, I was like, I saw it and I'm like, wait, what did he do? Because at first I thought he just went like and like touched his mouth, and then I realized after it was hilarious.
That's Tom Wilson has produced a couple of firsts, I think, for a lot of people. The brawl on the bench and now pulling Sebastian Aho's mouth guard out of his mouth.
Yeah.
What's the call on that? What's like Wes McCauley and TJ Luxmore with the officials last night? Like, what's your call? Is there a call on that? Nick Caroli said hold. That's a hold? Pulling a mouth guard out? How's that a hold?
No,
I think
2 minutes. You can't do that. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's like that blanket. We don't know that there's a penalty for this, so we're just going to call it unsportsmanlike conduct. That's all that is. To which my retort has always been, hockey's unsportsmanlike conduct. Like, have you seen the game? Like, I always found that call bizarre, Zach. Like, how can you call anything unsportsmanlike conduct when everything is unsportsmanlike conduct? Your problem is hockey, not that call.
They're basically saying to you, there's a lot of stuff going on here that you shouldn't do, but that one you really shouldn't do.
NY Boost metric saying interference. I don't know if I would call it interference. Again, that's just unsportsmanlike conduct, I suppose. Anyhow, did you have a couple of thoughts, by the way? I'm not sure how much of the Edmonton game you watched last night. Like, that was another spectacular comeback by the Edmonton Oilers, who, by the way, like, they have completely turned the page now, right? Like, I don't know how much I keep waiting for the clock to strike 12 on Pickard. I keep waiting for him to turn into a pumpkin, and every game that goes by, so okay, all right, he, the axe swung and he ducked, but wait till see what happens, and then another game goes by and he's good. Like, Edmonton seems to have really turned a page here. They got their scare on those first two games against the Los Angeles Kings, and now, even without Matthias Ekholm, this is like a different and really intense version of the Edmonton Oilers. And don't look now, but they got a solid second line too with Hyman, Kane, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. This team looks good.
So the two things that are the most intriguing to me is the one is the goalie situation, and it seems like any goalies we talk to or listen to, specifically, I mean, Carter Hutton's one I rely on a lot, is being he doesn't feel that, and like I'm going to take his word for it because I'm not a goalie guy, but he doesn't feel that they're going to be able to go long-term with Pickard, and it's going to have to be Stuart Skinner who comes back in. But it's like, well, what if he just does? I mean, that's just the dumbest question I could possibly ask you, but you know, Jeff, he could go on that run.
But
he could continue to be a hero here. Exactly. He could just keep that up. So maybe they can rely on it. And the other one was, you've got this situation in Edmonton with McDavid and Draisaitl, and you're lucky to always have those kinds of guys who can play 25 to 30 minutes if it needs to be the case, but you don't want it to need to be the case. And I saw games against that LA team where I was like, you can't rely on this. Yeah, it's great. They're going to win you a couple of games. Maybe they win you a series, but how is this going to sustain itself? And now all of a sudden it doesn't have to, because you're getting the depth contributions. And that was like the one question that I had about those guys and their ability to be able to compete long term and see if they could actually win anything was, can you get anything beyond the big boys, especially when they pair them up? Right now you're getting that. So it's kind of checking some boxes for me in terms of the questions I had about the Oilers.
One really quick thought on Connor Brown, who looks fantastic. Has always been a really good player in there. I don't know what was up with that 60-game streak where he couldn't score. Did you see where he did his celebration last night after he scored that goal?
Fans?
No. Did you see where he stopped and did his celebration? Where? Such a baller move. The Vegas bench.
Oh yeah. Easy. I said the fans because I did morning cup of hockey. And Tyler was pointing out how he's just he's riling up fans, whether it's in Edmonton scoring in front of them, getting them going, or in away barns, and he's kind of giving it to the fans. He's been doing that, and I noticed him kind of give the look to the Vegas fans yesterday too.
The best part about it didn't even acknowledge the bench.
Yeah.
Just do the celly at the and didn't even acknowledge that. I don't think that this series, not by a long shot, is over. So Vegas lost the game at home. Washington lost the game at home. I still think both teams are in it. And we'll see probably something different from the Vegas Golden Knights. Hopefully for their sake, they have Alex Pietrangelo in the lineup and Pavel Dorofeev, because those are two key minuses there. But I'll tell you, man, like this is a really cool version of the Edmonton Oilers. Like part of me looked at what happened last year with the Oilers and the Florida Panthers and like the absolute, dismay that Connor McDavid had in his face and that sort of aura all around him. It's just like, we were so close. We got it. And always I think in the back of my mind is McDavid thinking, because we've seen it with so many other players, that's the closest I'm ever going to get. I'm not saying they're going to win the Stanley Cup this year, but now for the first time this season, outside of that run that they had in, what was it, Zach, December, where they're probably the best team in the NHL, for the first time now in those last few games against the Kings and last night, against the Vegas Golden Knights, I finally am at the place where I'm like, I think they have a shot. Yeah.
They found that magic.
Think they have a shot. Anyhow, that series is real fun. Okay, let's get to our feature guest here. This segment is brought to you by RV Easy. Your motorhome or traveler trailer isn't just for getaways, it's a moneymaker on wheels. Most RVs sit parked in the driveway. With RV Easy, you can rent out your motorhome or travel trailer and earn over $20,000 this year. Founded, owned, and operated by Canadians, RV Easy takes care of everything, including full insurance coverage provided for every rental. And best of all, you choose when to rent and set your own pricing. List your RV for free today at rvezy.com. That's rvezy.com. RV Easy. Rent your RV, make money easy. Pleasure to welcome to the broadcast someone you saw on our trade deadline coverage. He is the one and only former NHLer turned elite level broadcaster, Matthew Barnaby. Barney, how are you today, pal? And where are you?
I'm good, my man. What's that?
Where are you?
I'm actually, LeBron James spends about $1 million a year on his body.
Yeah.
I'm at about $2,000 a year. So I'm actually sitting outside of the spa, getting ready. I've been traveling a lot lately, so shoulders are sore, back is sore, a lot of plane rides. So today is a spa day.
I remember talking to Colby Armstrong once about the lingering effects of playing in the NHL. And he said that, he wakes up in the morning and he can still feel the Hossa hit. Like he thinks about Marian Hossa when he wakes up because he still feels that hit when he gets out of bed. Listen, nobody gets out of the NHL clean. And when you play hockey the way, Barney, you played hockey, you ain't getting out of the NHL clean. How often, I'm always curious about this, how often are you reminded, or how often does your body remind you that you played in the NHL?
Well, every morning, especially if it's raining, like it's overcast today, I'll feel it at about 4 o'clock in the morning. It'll either be my shoulder, back, or knees. Every day, probably have headaches more than the normal person. And when you have 206 fights, you'd be naive to think that you wouldn't have repercussions from that. So I don't have a Hossa hit, but I have a Domi punch, multiple Chara punches, the Grim Reaper punching you. So yeah, every single day, JM. It's not a great way to after 50 is a lot tougher than after 35.
Sure. But do you ever look back on it? I'm going to get to hockey right now, but I want one more question from your history. Do you ever look back on it and say to yourself, was that really me? Because everyone changes, everyone evolves, everyone goes. Do you ever look back and go like, yeah, I did that. Like that was me, the competitor.
Yeah, because I'm completely different off the ice. So, I always said when I walked into our locker room, everything completely changed. I wasn't afraid to fight anymore. I wasn't afternoon naps. I'm 50. I just turned 52 and I still don't nap in the afternoon because I think my mind associates it with fighting Domi at night or Brashear, whoever it may be. So I don't nap well in the afternoon. And yeah, it's completely, I look back at some of the fights and laughing at people. And that was just me taking my mind to a different spot so I could compete against these guys. Because most of those guys were much bigger. So yeah, I do. And then the other question is, I get asked a lot, do you regret it? And the answer is 100% unequivocally, no. I loved it. It's what I wanted to do. My body's a little sore, but I don't regret it one bit. I got to live out a childhood dream.
Okay. Speaking of physicality, do you have a thought on, I'm just going to put the name out there. I'm not going to try to frame a question a specific way to bias the jury. I'm just going to say a name. Sam Bennett.
No, listen, he toes the line, and a lot of times he goes over the line, but we're speaking directly to the Stolar's head. That is not a suspension in any which way.
No.
And any time, listen, he took a hard snapshot off the mask from Reinhardt earlier, knocked his helmet right off. And I was reading, no one's ever got a concussion from a puck to the head with a mask on. That's lunacy. That's absolute nonsense. So, yeah, it wasn't a suspension. I just hope the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't going to go after Sam Bennett because, listen, I play like Sam Bennett, not nearly. I'm not comparing myself to Sam Bennett. He's a much better player, much more valuable to his team. But I loved when everyone was talking about something I did and retribution, and I used to go into the room the next day and say, guys, if they come after me in the playoffs, regular season, have my back. But if someone's going to slash me or come after me or punch me, stay away. Let's get the power play and make them pay. It's all about the W. So I think Craig Berube is a pretty smart guy, and this will be the topic of conversation for the whole team going into tonight's game. But no, not a suspension. It was nothing of a hit.
So the way that I was trying to none of that surprises me. You know what? In the playoffs, guys, stay away. Let them chop me down, lumberjack style. Doesn't matter. We want to go on the power play. I looked at yesterday. It was a sort of interesting exchange. On the one hand, you have Paul Maurice saying things like, "Oh, I watched my television. I've seen every hit that Sam Bennett threw going back to when he was 12 years old, and he's playing with the Marlboros with Jaden Lindo and Connor McDavid and Roland McEwen and all these." And then there's Craig Berube on the other hand, who's saying, "It's over. We move on." Like, didn't want any part of it. And Barney, I looked at it this way. Paul Maurice wants to drag the Toronto Maple Leafs into the mud and make it a really dirty series, right? That's where the Florida Panthers want to play. And then on the other hand, you had Craig Berube saying, "No way, man. Not going to happen. This is not my first rodeo. I'm not going to take the bait. No cheese in the trap for this guy. Not going to do it." Did you see it the same way?
Yeah, and it's funny you said that because I said it yesterday. I was like, this is what Florida wants. Listen, you got Matthew Tkachuk, and you have Sam Bennett, you got Brad Marchand. They live for this series. I would have lived for this series if I was playing in 2025. That's not Toronto's DNA. They don't have the guys to do that. Yeah, they got Domi that'll get in there, Tanev on the back end. They're bigger on the back end. But listen, you want Matthews, you want your Marners and Nylanders. You want to trade punches. Now, not punches literally. You want to trade chances because they have the skill. That's not anything what Craig Berube or the Toronto Maple Leafs want. This is Paul Maurice trying to set the stage to make it a war, a trenches. That plays into their team's hands, not the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I agree with this 100%. Here's what I wonder about. It's 6-0.
Oh, different. Now we're talking different. Go on.
It's 6-0. What changes, Matthew Barnaby? What changes?
Well, you go after anyone without taking a suspension. That's kind of how you set your tone. Now, if Florida's losing 6-0, now I'm going after the Mariners. I'm going after the Matthews. I'm getting dirty after. And same way for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Your bottom six plays a little bit more. Max Domi. Now go after Bennett. Now go after their guys. Go after Tkachuk. See if Tkachuk wants to drop those with you then. You know, that's a different beast when you're out of the game. And there is still message sending. I know it's not the archaic times of the 90s and early 2000s, but there is still message sending. And I love that part of hockey. We saw it in the first round in Winnipeg and St. Louis at ends of games and even the start of series. It's a long series. Know that these guys might be coming. But in a close game, you keep your discipline, 6-0, all bets are off.
Okay, a couple of things here. Got a couple of minutes left with you here. Tonight we'll see a pair of games. The Maple Leafs facing off against the Florida Panthers. Already had a whack at that pinata. What do you expect between Dallas and Winnipeg? Like, listen, Scheifele's a game time decision. Stanley's a game time decision. Morrissey is a game time decision. I always look at GTDs and the playoffs, and to me that says they're playing, but we'll see.
Yeah.
How do you handicap this one, knowing that at some point this series, Miro Heiskanen returns?
Yeah, Miro Heiskanen, Robertson. Listen, so many guys, so many variables when you look at it. And I look at it the exact same way. If you're a game time decision, probably you're playing, because I've been there before, and you'll play through anything if you are capable of helping your team and absolutely able to move around out there. I think Dallas Stars are the best team left in the playoffs. I had Colorado winning it. And for what Dallas did without having Robertson and Heiskanen in that lineup, first of all, both these teams having game sevens at home, I think were paramount in them winning. But I look at Dallas, they're just a deep, deep team. Heiskanen will come back. He will play at some point. I think there's a little, like, Winnipeg's an unbelievable spot, and they've set themselves up with home ice winning the President's Trophy. But to win the way they did and then come back just a few days later, I think it's going to take their toll on them a little bit. I think the extra day's rest for Dallas and being on the road is actually going to play into their favor in this one. So I like Dallas in this series. I like Dallas in game one.
We were having the conversation yesterday about, is this series one indication or one evaluation for who USA's netminder is at the Olympics next year? Because we've all just been handing this thing to Hellebuck, and then we saw Hellebuck get hooked 3 times in a series. Jake Ottinger is very much in that conversation. Does this begin to answer the question, who's playing net for USA, or am I just being way too early on that conversation?
I'd say you're way too early, but it is a conversation that I guarantee Team USA is looking at. I think right now it's still Hellebuck's. Listen, he might win the Hart Trophy this year. Now, having said that, you can't imagine or envision a guy with 3 Vezinas, President's Cup, President's Trophy, and maybe the Hart Trophy, and say, oh, we might go with Jake Ott. So I think it is a little early, but right now at this present time, I still think it's Hellebuck's, and then we reevaluate later on.
Do you have a quick thought on the Edmonton Oilers? Just want to fly around the series here. Do you have a thought on the Edmonton Oilers? They had their scare early against the Los Angeles Kings. Rightly or wrongly, their season changed when Quentin Byfield didn't chip the puck out and instead tried to skate it out, and then everything changed for the Edmonton Oilers. Do you have a thought on Connor McDavid and company? Anyone particularly standing out for you last night?
Yeah, well, I think you have to look at Connor Brown, first of all, and see 4 goals in 7 games. He's just a workhorse, right? And I listened to you earlier before I came on. How that guy went 60 games without a goal is just dumbfounding how hard he works and to the dirty spots on the ice that he goes. I was at that game 5. And Edmonton should be out of the playoffs right now. I was in Edmonton, and I saw that unfold. And I'll tell you, I don't know if there's a better rink. You can put Winnipeg there, but Edmonton, man, that sea of orange, and they are electric. That is a loud building. LA cost themselves. They have to be sitting home going, what the hell just happened? We should be playing Vegas. Edmonton playing with a little bit of fire, falling down behind 5 straight games and finding a way to win. That will catch up to them if they don't have better starts. But listen, when Connor McDavid starts to turn it up, and I thought it was going to be a very tough series with them without Ekholm against LA, they found a way to win, and in unbelievable fashion. And Vegas looks a little slow with Edmonton. Edmonton's a fast team. They looked a little slow. Now, Pietrangelo comes back. It's a little different beast. He's going to play 25, 26 minutes. But Edmonton looks like almost a team of destiny right now in the way that they can get through the Vegas Golden Knights. I picked Vegas to win, but you tell me LA now. I mean, you tell me Edmonton right now, and listen, Connor, he's a different beast. And when he turns it up, and I always think there's that pressure of those superstars, the Marios, the Crosbys, the Gretzkys, about winning a cup. And you only have so many kicks at the can.
I'll tell you what, I know that they're much different players, but the guy on the back end of Edmonton that I'm recently really impressed by, and I'm happy for him going through the surgery that he went through, is John Klingberg.
Yeah.
This is that old prime Dallas John Klingberg that we're seeing here, Barney.
Yeah, he is. He is, and he's a bigger responsibility. You look at that back end. You have Evan Bouchard, who's not great defensively, but Klingberg's slick, man. He's been around for a while now, and I think he's in a position right now where he doesn't take anything for granted. He plays with great players. He can move the puck. He's a great skater, great first pass, and that's what you're looking for in the playoffs. Is a lot of times people beat themselves, and we can go back to Quentin Byfield. Like, those little things are so paramount when you get into big games later in the series. That veterans, very good veteran players, they just don't make those kind of mistakes at the wrong times.
Your body may be sore every time you wake up, but you earned all of it. Barney, you earned your spa day many years ago. Thanks as always for stopping by, pal. We'll talk soon.
All right. Cheers, man. Keep up the good work.
There he is. Matthew Barnaby, former NHLer who was never shy in any game that he played. I thought that was an interesting comment, Zach, the idea of like, yeah, you know what? If it happens in the regular season and someone goes after me, yeah, by all means, stick up for me. But in the playoffs, stay away. Just stay away. Let them do whatever they want to me as long as we're going on the power play.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, obviously, he's going to have a little bit of a different perspective considering that he could have held his own pretty easily. But I do agree, like, that's going to be the same for Bennett here tonight if you're the Panthers. Oh, I don't care. Send them after me. Let them slash me, hook me, hit me in the scrums, all of it. If we're going to go to the power play, we'll take it because that Florida power play is pretty terrifying as well. And it's interesting. This Leafs team, the one thing I'll give them credit for, I mean, I've been following it very closely, Jeff, for a couple of years now
yes,
doing the shows. But they've handled this and talked about it in the media very differently than they have in years past. And Scott Laughton was asked about it today, I believe, and his answer was, yeah, you know how we get them back? By winning the game. It's like that's been the mindset of everybody on the Leafs. And it seems like everybody on the Panthers is kind of just being like, okay, we're ready for whatever it's going to be, however it's going to come. It doesn't seem like there's going to be much, but I've appreciated the back and forth between the two teams and about it all here right now.
For sure. Let's get to these pair of games tonight, and then a couple of things I want to go over before we bid everybody good afternoon here on the stream. The sheet, as always, is powered by FanDuel, home of the 7-game parlay. Make every moment more on FanDuel. FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. Pair of games today, the Florida Panthers. This is game 2. Florida Panthers facing off against the Toronto Maple Leafs. No Anthony Stolarz. Joseph Woll gets to start tonight with Matt Murray backing up. Sergei Bobrovsky will start. And Aaron Ekblad, watch your chins. Aaron Ekblad returns for the Florida Panthers. The Dallas Stars take on the Winnipeg Jets tonight. We mentioned the game time decisions. Mark Scheifele, Josh Morrissey, Logan Stanley, all game times for Scott O'Neill's crew. Meanwhile, can this Rantanen story continue? Is it going to be hat tricks every night? Is it going to be 11 points in 3 games here for Mikko Rantanen? Again, I don't know, but all I know is at the end of the first round, I'm curious your thoughts on this one. At the end of the first round, Wyshynski sent me a text saying, who's your Conn Smythe right now at the end of the first round? 1, 2, and 3. Number 1, I had Rantanen. Number 2, I had McDavid. And number 3, I had Eichel. All 3 players in the Western Conference. I get it. But those were my 3 for the Conn Smythe. It would be a tremendous finish to a tumultuous season for Mikko Rantanen if at the end of all of this, he wins his second cup and picks up the Conn Smythe trophy in the process.
Yeah, it would be. Also shake the Rantanen is the McKinnon merchant, like all that conversation. That would be pretty quickly dismissed if he goes out and wins a Conn Smythe. That's good. I haven't thought about the Conn Smythe, who it would be really until
do it every
you
round.
Just brought it up. I can't
do it every round.
I can't imagine there would be anybody else. Like I looked through even just by process of elimination. Not really anybody on Washington or Carolina who's like that one stand above everyone else, right? Mm-hmm. The Toronto, Florida, again, like it's not like it was Bob in the first round and it was pretty much an entire team effort by Florida.
Yeah.
Toronto, I don't know, like Nylander's probably their guy, Nye's probably their guy, but when you look over at West, it's definitely Mikko Rantanen who's done the most and been the most impactful. And then the other thing is like the storylines on it that just gets dragged along. This is a voted upon award. It's going to be carrying that weight with it all the way through. Yeah. Sorry, I just basically like talked through my entire thought process out loud because I haven't done so yet. But that's the way I would like eliminate all of it. I think this is a good point. I definitely would be Mikko Rantanen. I don't know if McDavid actually, for me, slots himself ahead of Jack Eichel right now, though. That's the only one I would probably flip-flop, but I think those are the top three, so that's where I would agree.
The Utah Mammoth. Lacrosse fans will go, yeah, so?
Yeah.
The Utah Mammoth. We have the name. We all know about the drama using the name Yeti because of the, as I like to call, mom's hockey wine glasses that we've seen with the Yeti cups. Come on, you played minor hockey, you know the deal. You saw all the moms with their Yetis. Yeah, okay, there's coffee in there. But nonetheless, the Utah Mammoth. First of all, great video. My favorite part of the video was the sequence where the puck hits the mesh in the net and there's ice all over it and it cracks. Really nice. Really, really nice touch by whoever put that together. Nice little video put out by the Utah Mammoth. Tusks up. Tusks up for the Utah Mammoth. You have a thought on this one?
I like it. I like the design. I'm not really surprised. I wanted Yeti. That's the reality.
Everybody wanted
Yeti. But, I mean, I don't know. I saw the Mammoth. It was kind of expected. I like the logo. It looks cool. The only thing for me is that the whole color scheme and everything looks a little like EA Sports-ish, which I don't mind. I don't have an issue with, but I thought it was a good job. I thought the announcement video was great and everything, and I do like those colors that they have. Also, I'm pretty sure, and Laz said it this morning, that they're keeping the white Utah jerseys. So with Utah across it, but the black one is having the Mammoth. I think that's really, really smart. I want to give them credit for that because you launch the inaugural jersey, people buy the jersey, and then it's like, hey, 1 year later, we're coming back. You got to get new jerseys. You keep that one, then next thing you know, it's like 5 years from now, and Jeff, we're doing the reverse retro, and they're bringing back the old Utah jerseys. It's like, I haven't seen those in a while.
Are we already starting to get nostalgic about Utah HC here? Is that where we're at right now? We're 1 year in and we're getting nostalgic about something? This is death by nostalgia.
I'm just thinking about how this goes.
Nothing holds us back more than death by nostalgia. I swear, the entire industry is based on it. If we're already nostalgic about Utah HC. I'm just glad that it's not HC. I didn't like it.
I kind of liked HC. I kind of liked it.
Nah, too
I
soccer.
kind of liked it.
Too soccer. Mammoth, I'm good with. I'm fine. The other bit of NHL news today, courtesy of the Buffalo Sabres, they named a special advisor, special assistant. I shouldn't say advisor. Special assistant to Kevin Adams and his former NHLer Eric Staal, who had a brief stint with the Buffalo Sabres. So he comes in as an assistant to Kevin Adams. Like, I think that Eric Staal will probably make a really good manager, executive in the NHL. The thing that I'll nitpick about this one is the constant story that we've been talking about with the Buffalo Sabres continues. That it's everywhere you look in this organization, on and off the ice, it's inexperience, right? Like maybe I shouldn't even mention it because who knows what's going to happen down the road here. Perhaps there will be, a senior advisor who comes in to work with Kevin Adams on decisions. But again, it's another first timer that comes in. Now it's one that played hockey for a very long time as part of one of the more influential drafts in the NHL, but entry-level positions, entry-level employees everywhere around the organization. Still waiting for someone more veteran to show up there.
I don't have any issue with these guys bringing in new people and like filling people a part of teams or giving new people opportunities, but you need to surround them with people who have been there and done that. Like Kevin Adams also played. Like Kevin Adams has also been there and knows play, and like it's not like you're bringing in a guy you're like, wow, you know what, Jeff? Thank God we've got an NHLer in the room finally. Like no, you have that. You have that experience. You do need someone who's lived the day-to-day of being a GM. I mean, hey, look, good for him, Staal, for getting this opportunity. The first thing I thought of was the assistant to the regional manager, like in The Office, which I was asking you about before. He says he's not the assistant. Yeah, he's not the assistant GM. He's the assistant to the GM.
To the GM.
But yeah, I don't know, man. I still am just waiting on someone to come in there to be able to help out. I don't know. That can't be it. If it is, shame on the Sabres. I'm sorry.
I don't think it is. And as I mentioned on my blog, I think it's going to be almost philosophical sea change right now with the Buffalo Sabres, as it does appear, at least for now, that there isn't going to be the bloodletting that we thought there was going to be at the end of this season based on what expectations were for this year. But it does very much feel like with the Buffalo Sabres, now finally they've come around to the idea that they don't have enough veteran players in this lineup. And that's what Lindy Ruff wants. And that's what Lindy Ruff needs. And I don't know how many end up going, but I think that they're now more so than ever before with Kevin Adams open to the idea of moving younger players for more established players on this team. I think that's where the Buffalo Sabres are at now, using younger players as assets.
Yeah, and
JJ Peterka, Bo Byram, like these types of names is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Jeff, the last thing on it, I don't want to dig too much into it because I agree, and that's probably the right thing to do. But, oh my God, you got to be just shaking in your boots every time somebody calls you about some young player that you're going to make a trade, just given the history
I
of
know.
what you've had there. Dude, that's all I want to say. Like, I do agree that this is probably the way they have to go, but, I would be like, hello? You want Bo Byram? Oh, no.
What did you think What did you think of when you saw Dylan Cousins score against your Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm thinking of the Buffalo Sabres and just like this kid's going to grow. He's going to mature. They're going to be loving him in Ottawa, and the Sabres are going to be sitting there going, we had that guy. He played for us.
It'll be another fascinating offseason with the Buffalo Sabres. Okay. Anything else we needed to get to today? Coaching carousel. But there's a lot of Zoom calls going on right now, folks, because there are some coaches that are obviously assistant coaches that are in the NHL right now who on off days are having Zoom calls with various teams. So no coaching positions filled as of this show's recording, 2:09 Eastern, but we'll see what the rest of the day brings. I would imagine we'd be starting to hear some news because no one wants to get left out here. Like they don't want to miss getting the person that they want. And then once one goes, don't be surprised if there's a rush as teams panic and say, we got to get our guy now. We got to get our guy now. Or, we risk losing them. So we'll see what happens with the coaching carousel around the National Hockey League here. We'll be here to cover all of it. In the meantime, we are back tomorrow, 1:00 Eastern, here on the program. One more day in Washington and then off to Florida. Thanks to Matt Barnaby for stopping by, former NHLer turned broadcaster. And, of course, Brian MacLellan, the president of hockey operations for the Washington Capitals. It doesn't sound like it was a very good day around here today. Doesn't sound like there were very happy people around Washington after what we saw last night. But again, I'll point out, Carolina is a suffocatingly difficult team to play against. They don't give you any room to maneuver, and they tire you out. So by the time you get the puck, you're exhausted. And all you can think about is, good, we got the puck. That means we can change. But there's a lot of open ice out there still. And that's why when the Carolina Hurricanes do surrender a chance, generally it's a high danger primo scoring opportunity for whoever finds the puck on their stick. Anyway, all I'm saying is this thing ain't over, despite what you saw last night. And don't forget, too, the Washington Capitals led for most of that game, even though they were being strangled by an anaconda led by Rod Brindamore. Thanks to Brian MacLellan for stopping by. Thanks to Matt Barnaby. Thanks to Nick Caroli. Thanks to Zach Phillips. Everybody here on site in Washington and back at Master Control, which is Zach's condo, as we like to point out. Back tomorrow on the program. Thanks for being in the chat. Thanks for watching on YouTube, listening on your favorite podcast platform. Back in 23 hours. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.